The morning sun rose over New Haven like any other day, painting the colony buildings in shades of orange and gold. Corporal Taman stood at his post outside the governor's hall, rifle held loosely in his hands. He had been a soldier for 6 years now, and guard duty was usually boring. Today felt different. The alien ships had appeared in orbit 3 days ago. Massive vessels that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built, hanging in space like silent gods. The governor had called it a historic moment. First contact with an advanced alien civilization. Taman wasn't so sure. In his experience, when someone showed up with bigger guns, they usually weren't there to make friends. Inside the hall, the delegation was gathering. Politicians in their fancy suits, scientists with their tablets, and a handful of military officers who looked just as nervous as Taman felt. Major Subin, his commanding officer, caught his eye and gave a small nod. She was a sharp woman, 15 years in service, and she had taught Taman everything he knew about staying alive. The aliens arrived exactly on time. Their shuttle landed in the plaza with barely a sound, all smooth metal and strange curves. When the doors opened, Taman got his first look at the Velisari. They were tall, much taller than humans, with long limbs and graceful movements. Their skin seemed to shimmer with patterns of light that moved beneath the surface like watching stars through deep water. They wore elegant armor that looked ceremonial but probably wasn't. Everything about them screamed power and confidence. The Empress came first, flanked by guards. She wore a crown of crystalline material that floated above her head without any visible support. Her face was beautiful in an alien way, but her eyes were cold. Behind her walked a younger Velisari, smaller but no less impressive. The princess, Taman guessed. The negotiations started badly and got worse. The Empress spoke through a translation device that turned her musical language into flat, emotionless words. Her message was simple: submit to the Velisari Empire or be destroyed. They would be generous overlords, she promised. Humanity would be protected, guided, and civilized. All they had to do was kneel. Governor Park tried to be diplomatic. He talked about mutual cooperation, cultural exchange, and peaceful coexistence. The Empress listened with barely concealed amusement, like an adult watching a child explain how the world works. Taman watched the princess during all this. While everyone else focused on the Empress, the younger alien was studying the humans. Her eyes moved from face to face, taking in every detail. When her gaze landed on Taman, he felt a strange chill. She wasn't looking at him the way the Empress looked at humans, like they were lesser beings. She was looking at him like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Then everything went wrong. The explosion came from the west side of the hall, windows shattered inward in a spray of glass and fire. Taman reacted without thinking, years of training taking over. He threw himself forward, putting his body between the blast and the crowd. Something hit him hard in the shoulder, spinning him around. Through the smoke and chaos, he saw figures moving, armed figures wearing stolen Velisari armor. Not real aliens, humans, he realized. Terrorists or radicals or just idiots who thought killing the Empress would somehow save them from the fleet in orbit. Subin was already moving, her weapon up and firing. Taman joined her, his rifle barking short, controlled bursts. The attackers were well-equipped but poorly trained. They had ambush and surprise on their side, but they didn't have discipline. One of them broke through the line, running straight for the Empress with some kind of device in his hands. A bomb, Taman realized. The alien guards were turning, too slow, their weapons not yet aimed. The princess was in the way. Taman didn't think. He ran, legs pumping, closing the distance. He hit the princess like a linebacker, wrapping his arms around her and taking them both to the ground. The bomber got 3 more steps before Subin's bullet took him down. The device clattered across the floor. Time seemed to stretch. Taman covered the princess with his body, feeling her strange heartbeat racing against his chest. She was lighter than he expected, her frame delicate despite her height. The bomb detonated, but they were far enough away that the blast wave just knocked the air from his lungs. When the ringing in his ears faded, he realized the princess was saying something in her language. Her hands were on his shoulders, not pushing him away but gripping tight. Her bioluminescent patterns were flashing in rapid sequences, some kind of emotional response, he guessed. Subin pulled him up, already barking orders. The attackers were down, all of them. The Empress was unharmed, surrounded by her guards who looked ready to start killing everyone in sight. The governor was bleeding from a cut on his forehead, but alive. The princess stood slowly, brushing dust from her armor. She looked at Taemin for a long moment, her head tilted slightly. Then she turned to her mother and spoke rapidly in their language. The Empress responded sharply, her patterns flashing red. They were arguing, Taemin realized. What's happening? Governor Park asked, holding a cloth to his head. One of the Velisari guards activated his translator. The princess thanks the human soldier for his service. The Empress says it was his duty and requires no thanks. The princess spoke again, longer this time, her voice growing stronger. Every Velisari in the room went very still. Even the Empress looked shocked. What did she say? Subin demanded. The guard seemed uncomfortable. The princess has invoked the right of selection. It is an ancient custom. She has chosen this human as her potential mate. The translator must have malfunctioned, Taemin thought. That couldn't be right. He looked at the princess, who was staring directly at him, her hand raised and pointing. There was something in her expression. Determination, maybe, or defiance. Mother, she said in accented but clear English, I choose this one. The room erupted in chaos. The Empress was shouting in her own language, her patterns flashing angry reds and oranges. The human delegation was talking over each other, confusion and panic spreading. Subin grabbed Taemin's arm, pulling him back. What did you do? She hissed. I just saved her life. Taemin protested. Well, congratulations, soldier. You just became the most important person on this planet, and possibly the deadest. Taemin looked back at the princess. She hadn't moved, hadn't lowered her hand. Her eyes met his across the chaos, and he saw something there he didn't expect. Hope. The medical bay smelled like antiseptic and recycled air. Taemin sat on an examination table while a nervous doctor cleaned the cuts on his shoulder. Nothing serious, just scratches from flying glass. The doctor's hands shook slightly, and Taemin couldn't blame him. 3 armed Velisari guards stood watching from the corner, their alien faces unreadable. It had been 6 hours since the attack, 6 hours since the princess had pointed at him and turned his life upside down. Major Subin entered the bay, her face tight with stress. She dismissed the doctor with a gesture and waited until he left before speaking. We have a situation, she said quietly. I noticed, Taemin replied. Subin pulled up a chair and sat down heavily. The princess wasn't joking. The right of selection is a real thing in Velisari culture. When a royal chooses someone, it's binding by their law. If you accept and complete the courtship trials, you become her mate. That makes you a prince of their empire. Taemin stared at her. That's insane. It's also our only chance, Subin said. The Empress wants to conquer us. She sees humans as primitive animals barely worth enslaving. But if you marry the princess, it changes everything. We become allies through marriage, not vassals through conquest. The colony survives. So I'm supposed to marry an alien princess to save everyone? Taemin felt his temper rising. I'm a soldier, Major. I follow orders. I do my job. I'm not some diplomatic tool. Right now, you're whatever we need you to be. Subin's voice was hard, but her eyes showed sympathy. I know it's not fair. But when is it ever? The door opened again. This time it was Governor Park, accompanied by the princess herself. The Velisari woman had to duck slightly to enter the human-sized doorway. Up close, she was even more striking. Her bioluminescent patterns pulsed in gentle blues and greens, calm colors, according to the briefing materials Taemin had been given. Corporal Taemin, the governor said formally, May I present Princess Hijin of the Velisari Empire? The princess bowed slightly, a gesture that seemed borrowed from human custom. I apologize for the manner of my selection, she said in careful English. I have caused you distress. You could say that, Taemin replied, then remembered he was talking to alien royalty. Your Highness, a flicker of amusement crossed her face. Just Hijin, please. If we are to be bonded, formality serves no purpose. About that, Taemin said. Why me? You don't know anything about me. Hye-jin moved closer, studying him with those strange, luminous eyes. I know you did not hesitate when you saw danger. I know you protected me without thought for yourself. I know your species builds weapons that should not work according to our physics, yet they function through sheer stubborn ingenuity. She paused, and I know that when I looked into your eyes during the attack, I saw something my people lost long ago. What's that? The will to fight against impossible odds without arrogance. Your species should not have survived first contact with the dangers of space. You lack our genetic advantages, our technology, our lifespans. Yet you thrive. You adapt. You overcome. Her patterns shifted to warmer colors. That is worthy of admiration. Governor Park cleared his throat. The Empress has agreed to allow the courtship trials, though she is not happy about it. Princess, perhaps you could explain what these trials involve. Heejin nodded. There are 3 tests: strength, wisdom, and spirit. They are designed to prove worthiness to join the imperial bloodline. They are also designed to be very difficult. Most candidates do not survive. Survive? Taemin repeated. The Velisari value genetic perfection, Hyojin said quietly. The trials eliminate the weak. I will not lie to you, Taemin. They will push you beyond what you think you can endure. My mother expects you to fail. She has already chosen champions to face you who have trained their entire lives for such contests. Subin stood up. This is insane. We can't ask him to— I'll do it, Taemin interrupted. Everyone turned to look at him. He met Hyejin's eyes, then the governor's, then Subin's. I'll do it, he repeated. Not because I want to marry someone I just met. Not because I think I'm some kind of hero. But because if this keeps the fleet from glassing our colony, then it's worth trying. He looked back at Hyejin. But I need to know something. Are you doing this because you actually chose me, or because you're trying to save us from your mother? The princess was silent for a long moment. Her patterns shifted through several colors before settling on a deep purple. Both, she said finally. I chose you because I saw something true in you. But I also chose you because my mother's way is wrong. The Empire has conquered 100 worlds, and we have learned nothing from them. We take their resources, their labor, and their obedience, but we never consider that they might have value beyond servitude. She stepped closer. You saved my life today, Taemin. Not because you were ordered to. Not because you hoped for reward. You simply did it. That is not weakness. That is strength my people have forgotten. Taemin found himself believing her. Maybe it was stupid, maybe he was being manipulated, but something in her voice rang true. When do the trials start? He asked. Tomorrow, Hyojin said. You will need rest. And training, though there is little time for it. I will help you prepare, the governor nodded. We'll give you everything we can, Corporal. Trainers, equipment, whatever you need. After they left, only Subin remained. She looked at Taemin with an expression he couldn't quite read. You didn't have to volunteer, she said. Yes, I did. Taemin replied. We both know that. Better to walk in with my eyes open than pretend I had a choice. For what it's worth, I think you'll surprise them. Subin moved toward the door, then paused. The princess isn't what I expected. She could have chosen anyone. One of their own warriors, a champion. Instead, she chose a human corporal who grew up fixing machines in the mining district. Either she's playing a very deep game or she actually believes what she said. Which do you think it is? Subin smiled slightly. Does it matter? Either way, you're stuck in it now. After she left, Taemin sat alone in the medical bay. His hands were steady, which surprised him. He had faced combat before, had been in situations where death was one mistake away. But this was different. This wasn't about surviving the next fight. This was about somehow proving that humanity deserved to be treated as equals by a species that saw them as barely evolved animals. The door opened one more time. Hyojin entered alone, her guards remaining outside. I wanted to speak with you privately, she said, away from politics and duty. All right. She sat down carefully, her long legs folding in a way that looked uncomfortable in the human-sized chair. I need you to understand something. I do not expect you to love me. I do not even expect you to like me. But I need you to trust that I am sincere. This is not manipulation. Then what is it? A gamble, she said simply. I am betting that humans are more than my mother believes, that you will show our empire something we have lost. And I am betting that you, specifically, are strong enough to survive what comes next. Taemin met her alien eyes. I hope you're right. So do I, Hyojin said softly. Because if you fail, it will not only be your death. It will be proof that my mother was right all along. The arena was bigger than Taemin expected. A massive circular space carved from the hull of the Velisari flagship, with walls of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Thousands of aliens filled the viewing sections above, their bioluminescent patterns creating a sea of shifting colors. Taemin stood in the center, feeling very small and very human. The Empress sat on a throne overlooking everything, her crown glowing with harsh white light. Beside her, Hyojin watched with an expression Taemin couldn't read. They had spent the previous night going over what he could expect, but knowing about something and facing it were very different things. "The trial of strength begins," the Empress announced, her voice amplified through the arena. "Let the challenger prove his worth or let him die trying." A door opened on the far side. What came through made Taemin's stomach drop. The Velisari champion was massive, easily 8 feet tall and covered in powered armor that hummed with energy. The armor was sleek and advanced, probably capable of things Taemin couldn't even imagine. In the champion's hands was a weapon that looked like a cross between a spear and a plasma rifle. Taemin had a combat knife and light armor that was already 30 years out of date. The Velisari apparently believed in making their trials fair by their standards. "Not anyone else's. You may begin," the Empress said, and there was satisfaction in her voice. The champion charged immediately. Taemin dove sideways, barely avoiding the first strike. The spear hit the arena floor where he'd been standing and left a melted crater. Right, he thought. Don't get hit by that. He rolled to his feet and ran, not away from the champion but toward the arena walls. The Velisari in the crowd made sounds that might have been booing. They wanted to see a fight, not a chase. Good. Let them think he was scared. The champion followed, faster than something that big should move. The powered armor gave him speed and strength beyond natural limits, but it also made him predictable. Taemin had fought in armor before, knew its advantages and weaknesses. The key was not to fight the armor directly. He reached the wall and jumped, using a protruding section as a foothold to launch himself higher. The champion swung his spear in a wide arc, expecting Taemin to dodge backward. Instead, Taemin went up and over, landing behind his opponent. The knife flashed out, striking at the joints where the armor plates met. The champion spun impossibly fast, and the spear's butt end caught Taemin in the ribs. Pain exploded through his chest, and he flew backward, hitting the arena floor hard. Through blurred vision, he saw the champion approaching for the finish. The crowd was roaring now, their patterns flashing in excited reds and oranges. Even Hyojin looked tense, leaning forward in her seat. Taemin forced himself to breathe through the pain. The knife had left a scratch on the armor joint, barely visible, but it was there. Proof that the armor could be damaged. He stood up slowly, making himself look more hurt than he was. The champion took the bait, approaching confidently. When the spear came down in a killing blow, Taemin wasn't there. He'd learned the timing now, learned the slight delay between the champion's decision and the armor's response. He slipped inside the reach of the weapon and drove his knife into the same joint he'd hit before. This time he twisted, feeling something give. Hydraulic fluid sprayed out, and the champion's right arm suddenly moved slower. The champion roared and grabbed Taemin with his left hand, lifting him off the ground. The armor's strength was terrifying. Taemin felt like his spine might snap. But the champion had made a mistake. He'd dropped his weapon to grab Taemin with both hands. Taemin swung his leg up and hooked it around the champion's helmet, using his body weight as leverage. Then he drove his knife into the neck seal of the armor, right where the helmet met the chest plate. The champion dropped him immediately, staggering backward. The helmet sparked and went dark. Without the armor's visual displays, the champion was fighting blind. Taemin hit the ground and rolled, grabbing the fallen spear. It was heavy, designed for Velisari strength, but adrenaline made him strong. He spun the weapon and fired. The plasma bolt hit the champion's damaged right arm, and the armor's power supply overloaded. Electricity arced across the metal surface, and the champion fell to his knees. The armor had become a prison, its systems fried. The arena went silent. Taemin stood over the fallen champion, the spear still humming in his hands. He could end it now. One shot to the head and the fight was over. He lowered the weapon instead. "Yield," he called out in English, then repeated it in the few words of Velisari that Hyojin had taught him. The champion's helmet released with a hiss. Inside was a face marked with patterns of shame and anger, but also grudging respect. "I yield," the alien said. The crowd erupted. Taemin couldn't tell if they were cheering or calling for his death. Probably both. He looked up at the throne, where the Empress sat with an expression carved from ice. Hyojin was standing, her patterns blazing in bright golds and blues. Pride, Taemin remembered. Those were the colors of pride. "The trial of strength is complete," the Empress announced coldly. "The human has passed. Let him rest before the next trial." Taemin was escorted back to his quarters by Velisari guards who now looked at him differently, not with respect exactly, but with wariness. That was something. Jin came to visit him an hour later. She brought medical supplies and helped him bind his cracked ribs. Her touch was gentle, surprisingly so. "You fought well," she said. "Better than I expected." "I got lucky," Tae-min replied, wincing as she tightened the bandage. "No," Jin said firmly. "You adapted. You studied your opponent and found his weakness. That is not luck. That is intelligence applied under pressure." She paused. "My people have forgotten that strength comes in many forms. We have engineered ourselves for physical perfection, but we have lost the ability to think creatively in combat. We follow forms, patterns, established techniques. You do not. That is your advantage, and what's the next trial?" Tae-min asked. "Wisdom," Jin said. "It will test your ability to solve problems and think strategically. My mother has chosen a puzzle that has stumped candidates for 3 generations. She believes your human mind will be too simple to solve it. Is she right?" Jin met his eyes. "I do not know. The puzzle is designed for Velisari cognition. We process patterns differently than humans do. What seems obvious to us might be impossible for you and vice versa. Then why did you choose me?" "Because I am hoping that your different way of thinking will let you see something we cannot," Jin said. She finished the bandage and sat back. "Rest now. Tomorrow will be harder than today." That night, Tae-min lay in his bunk and stared at the ceiling. His body hurt. His ribs screamed with every breath, and he was committed to 2 more trials that might kill him. But he'd won the first one. Against a superior opponent with better equipment and training, he'd found a way. Maybe Jin was right. Maybe being human wasn't a disadvantage. Maybe it was just different. Outside his window, the stars shone cold and distant. Somewhere out there was Earth, the cradle of humanity. A species that had crawled up from the mud and thrown themselves at the stars with nothing but stubbornness and hope. If they could do that, Tae-min thought, then maybe he could survive 2 more trials. He had to. Not just for himself, not just for Jin, but for every human who would come after. They needed to know that humanity could stand equal with the stars, even if it meant standing on cracked ribs and borrowed luck. The chamber for the trial of wisdom was nothing like the arena. It was quiet, almost peaceful, with soft lighting that didn't hurt Tae-min's eyes. In the center of the room stood a circular table, and on that table was the puzzle. It looked simple at first glance. Hundreds of crystalline pieces arranged in patterns that shifted and changed as he watched. Colors flowed through the crystals like liquid light, forming shapes that almost made sense before dissolving into chaos again. The Empress stood off to one side with her advisors. Jin was there too, though she wasn't allowed to help. This trial was different from the first. No violence, no physical danger. Just Tae-min, the puzzle, and his own mind. "This is the pattern of ancients," the Empress explained. "It has been used to test royal candidates for 3,000 years. 67 Velisari have attempted it. Only 12 have succeeded. It requires perfect understanding of multi-dimensional pattern recognition, an ability your primitive brain lacks." Tae-min stepped closer to the table. The crystals responded to his presence, their light growing brighter. When he reached out, one of the advisors made a warning sound. "You may not touch the pieces until you declare your approach," the Empress said. "Speak your strategy or withdraw in failure." Tae-min studied the puzzle carefully. The patterns seemed random, but they weren't. There was structure underneath, a logic he couldn't quite grasp. The Velisari way of thinking was different from human thought. They saw connections that he couldn't, processed information in ways his brain simply didn't work. If he tried to solve this puzzle the way a Velisari would, he'd fail. That much was obvious, so he needed to think like a human. "Can I ask questions?" he said. The Empress looked annoyed. "You may ask. I may answer or not, as I choose." "How many candidates solved this puzzle by finding the correct pattern?" "All 12 who succeeded found the pattern. That is the point of the test." "What happened to the 55 who failed?" "They were deemed unworthy and sent away. Some died in other trials. Some lived lives of shame. Why does this matter?" Tae-min walked around the table, looking at the puzzle from different angles. The patterns shifted constantly, never settling. "You said this puzzle tests pattern recognition. But what if the real test isn't finding the pattern? What if it's recognizing when there isn't one?" The room went very quiet. Even the advisors stopped their whispering. The Empress's patterns flickered in confused oranges. "Explain yourself," she commanded. "Look at it," Tae-min said, gesturing at the crystals. "It never stops changing. Every time I think I see a pattern, it shifts into something else. You said 12 people solved this in 3,000 years. That's not a test of intelligence. That's random chance. He could see he'd struck something. Heejin had gone very still, her patterns cycling through rapid colors. The Empress looked genuinely surprised for the first time since they'd met. You claim the sacred pattern is meaningless? One of the advisors demanded. No, Taemin said carefully. I claim the test isn't about solving the puzzle. It's about understanding that some problems don't have solutions. 12 Velisari got lucky and found patterns that satisfied the observers. 55 others were smarter and recognized the puzzle for what it is. A test of wisdom, not pattern recognition. The wisdom to know when you're chasing something that doesn't exist. The Empress moved closer to the table. For the first time, she looked at the puzzle like she was really seeing it. You think you are clever, she said softly. You think you have found a trick, a way to avoid the challenge. I think I found the real challenge, Taemin replied. You want to know if I'm wise enough to question assumptions. A fool looks at this puzzle and thinks there must be an answer because you told him there was. A wise person looks at the evidence and draws their own conclusion. He stepped back from the table. I'm not touching the crystals. I'm not declaring a pattern. I'm saying the puzzle itself is the answer. The wisdom is knowing when to stop trying to force order onto chaos. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The Empress stared at Taemin with an expression he couldn't read. Then slowly she began to laugh. It was a strange sound, musical and cold at the same time. 3,000 years, she said. 3,000 years and a human is the first to speak the truth aloud. She turned to her advisors. He passes. Noted in the records. The advisors looked shocked, but they bowed and obeyed. Hyjin's patterns blazed in brilliant golds. She was smiling, really smiling, and it transformed her alien face into something warm. As Taemin was led from the chamber, he felt a hand on his shoulder. It was one of the Empress's advisors, an old Velisari with patterns that had faded to pale blues. You should know, the advisor whispered in English, that the Empress herself attempted the pattern when she was young. She spent years trying to solve it before finally arranging the crystals in a configuration that pleased her teachers. She has always wondered if she truly solved it, or if she simply got lucky. The advisor slipped away before Taemin could respond. That evening, Heejin brought him food, real food from the colony, not the Velisari nutrient paste he'd been eating. They sat together in his quarters, and for the first time the conversation felt natural. You surprised my mother today, Heejin said. She did not expect you to question the test itself. Did you? Taemin asked. I hoped you would, Heejin admitted. Our people have lost the ability to question. We follow traditions because they are traditions, not because they make sense. The pattern has always seemed flawed to me, but I never dared say so. Why not? Because I am a princess. I am supposed to be perfect, to embody the best of our species. Questioning tradition would be questioning myself. Taemin took a bite of food, savoring the taste of something familiar. That sounds exhausting. It is, Heejin said quietly, which is why I chose you. You are not bound by our expectations. You think in ways we have forgotten. She paused. There is something you should know. Lord Hyunwoo has been asking questions about you. He was expected to court me to eventually become my mate. Your presence has disrupted his plans. Is he dangerous? Very, Heejin said. He commands a third of our military fleet and has support among the old families. If he believes you are truly a threat to his ambitions, he will act. What can he do? The Empress authorized the trials. He can spread lies, claim you are manipulating me, that humans have some kind of mind control technology. Our people are already suspicious of your species. It would not take much to turn suspicion into hostility. Taemin set down his food. Is there proof? Evidence that I'm not controlling you? Only my word, Heejin said. And the word of a princess who chose a human over her own kind is not as trusted as it once was. They sat in silence for a while. Outside the window, the colony lights were coming on as evening settled over New Haven. Taemin thought about his family, probably worried sick about him. He thought about all the colonists whose lives depended on him passing one more trial. The trial of spirit, he said. Tell me what it really involves. Hyejin's patterns shifted to nervous purples. It is a neural link. Your mind and mine will merge temporarily. We will share memories, emotions, thoughts. There will be no secrets, no barriers. The Empress believes human psychology is too alien to survive contact with Velisari consciousness. She thinks your mind will break. Will it? I do not know, Hyejin admitted. No human has ever attempted it, but I will be there with you, experiencing everything you experience. If your mind breaks, mine may break with it. You're willing to risk that? Hyojin met his eyes, and in them he saw something he recognized. Determination. Hope. The same things he saw in his own mirror every morning. Yes, she said simply, because I believe you are stronger than fear, and because I need to know if I am right about your species. What if you're wrong? Then I will have failed my people and destroyed the one person who tried to help me save them. Her smile was sad. No pressure, Taemin. Despite everything, he laughed. The sound surprised them both. Well, he said, I've made it this far on stubbornness and luck. Might as well see if that works for one more trial. It will take more than luck, Hyojin warned. The link will expose everything. Every fear, every secret, every moment of weakness. Can you survive having your soul laid bare? Taemin thought about that. Thought about the things he'd seen in combat. The things he'd done, the people he'd failed to save. Then he thought about why he'd become a soldier in the first place. To protect people, to make something good from all the bad. I guess we'll find out, he said. The chamber for the final trial was different from anything Taemin had seen on the ship. Organic curves blended with crystalline structures, creating a space that felt alive. At the center was a platform surrounded by flowing streams of light that moved like water, but glowed like stars. Hyojin stood waiting, wearing simple robes instead of her usual armor. Her patterns pulsed slowly, calm but not quite steady. Nervous, Taemin realized. She was as scared as he was. The Empress watched from above, surrounded by witnesses. Every important Velisari seemed to be present, their faces showing a mixture of curiosity and disdain. Lord Hyunwoo stood among them, his patterns flickering in angry reds. The trial of spirit is sacred, the Empress announced. 2 minds will become one. Truth cannot hide in the link. If the human's consciousness is compatible with my daughter's, if his spirit is strong enough to endure the merger, then he is worthy. If not, she paused, then we will know humans are too primitive for the honor of joining our bloodline. Taemin climbed onto the platform. Hyojin took his hands, her skin surprisingly warm despite her alien biology. This close, he could see the patterns under her skin shifting in complex rhythms. Are you ready? She asked quietly, speaking only for him. No, Taemin admitted, but I don't think there's any way to be ready for this. Just remember, Hyojin said, I will experience everything you feel. If there is pain, I feel it too. If there is fear, I share it. We are in this together. A Velisari technician approached with what looked like thin silver circlets. One went around Taemin's head, the other around Hyojin's. They hummed with soft energy. The link will activate on my command, the technician said. Once begun, it cannot be stopped until completion. The connection will last 1 hour. During this time, your consciousnesses will merge. Memories will flow between you. Emotions will be shared. Many candidates experience disorientation, fear, or psychological trauma. Some do not survive with their minds intact. Great, Taemin muttered. That's reassuring. Hyojin squeezed his hands. Focus on me. When the link begins, find me in the chaos. We anchor each other. The technician stepped back. The Empress raised her hand. Begin. The universe exploded into sensation. Taemin felt Hyojin's mind crash into his like a wave. Centuries of memories flooded through him. Her childhood in the Imperial Palace, lessons in diplomacy and warfare, the crushing weight of expectations. He experienced her loneliness, the isolation of being royalty, the feeling that she was more symbol than person, and she was experiencing him. He felt her presence in his memories, his brother's death in the mining accident. Taemin had been 15, working alongside Jinho in the deep shafts. The explosion had come without warning. He remembered the darkness, the screaming, his hands bloody as he tried to dig through the rubble. Jinho's last words, "Take care of Mom." Hyojin's grief mixed with his own, compounding it. He felt her horror at the memory, her shock at the casual brutality of human working conditions. More memories rushed past. Boot camp, learning to be a soldier. The first time he'd killed someone in combat, a raider attacking the colony. The nightmare afterward, seeing the raider's face every time he closed his eyes. Hyojin experienced his fear during firefights, the constant awareness that death was one mistake away. She felt his determination to protect others even when he was terrified. She understood finally what it meant to be human, fragile and mortal but fighting anyway. And Taemin experienced her world. The Velisari were long-lived, sometimes surviving for thousands of years. Heejin was only 300, still young by her people's standards. But those 3 centuries weighed heavy. She had seen empires rise and fall, had watched generations of humans live and die like mayflies. He felt her growing disillusionment with her people. The Velisari had achieved genetic perfection, but at a cost. They had engineered away their weaknesses, but also their passion, their creativity, their ability to change. They were perfect, but static, unchanging, slowly dying of their own success. That's why she chose him, he realized, not despite his humanity, but because of it, because humans were messy and imperfect and still somehow beautiful in their stubborn determination to survive. The link deepened. They weren't just sharing memories now. They were experiencing each other's present emotions in real time. Taemin felt Hyejin's hope, her desperate wish that he could show her people something they'd lost. He felt her fear that she was wrong, that she was risking everything on a gamble that would destroy them both. And she felt his resolve. The part of him that had kept going after Jinho died, that had survived combat and loss and kept fighting. The core of him that refused to give up even when giving up made sense. You are stronger than I imagined, her thoughts whispered through his mind. You're lonelier than anyone should be, his thoughts answered back. The memories continued flowing, but gentler now. They had found their rhythm, their minds synchronizing. Taemin saw Hyejin's secret studies of human culture, her fascination with human art and music. She saw his quiet moments of doubt, wondering if he was good enough, strong enough, worth anything. You are worthy, her thoughts insisted. So are you, his replied. You don't have to be perfect. Just being you is enough. Something broke open in Hyejin's consciousness. Centuries of pressure of maintaining the perfect facade cracked and fell away. He felt her crying, though her body on the platform remained still. Tears of relief, of release. And he found himself sharing his own buried pain, the guilt over Jinho, the fear that he was just pretending to be brave, the loneliness of being the one who survived when others didn't. You carry your dead with you, Hyejin's thoughts observed. We Velisari forget our dead. They live so long ago that they become history, not memory. But you hold them close, let them shape you. That is not weakness, that is love. The hour passed in what felt like both seconds and years. When the link finally released, Taemin collapsed onto the platform, gasping. His body was drenched in sweat, his heart racing. Beside him, Hyejin was shaking, her pattern cycling through colors he'd never seen before. They looked at each other, and it was different now. They had been strangers before, 2 beings from different species trying to communicate across an impossible gap. Now they knew each other more deeply than most people ever know anyone. The Empress descended from her viewing platform. She looked at the readings the technicians were showing her, then at Taemin and her daughter. Her expression was complex, surprise, worry, and something that might have been respect. The link held stable, she said quietly. Your minds merged without breaking. The trial is complete. She paused, studying Taemin with new eyes. I underestimated you, human. I thought your consciousness would be too primitive, too simple to interface with Velisari neural patterns. I was wrong. Hyejin stood slowly, helping Taemin to his feet. They were still holding hands, and neither seemed inclined to let go. He has passed all 3 trials, Hyejin said, and her voice was steady despite the tears on her face. By imperial law, he is my chosen mate. By imperial law, yes, the Empress agreed. But Lord Hyunwoo has formally objected to the union. He claims you have been compromised, that the human has somehow influenced your judgment. That is ridiculous, Hyejin said angrily. The link proves only that your minds are compatible, Hyunwoo interrupted, stepping forward. His patterns flashed in aggressive reds. It does not prove his intentions are pure. Humans are known for their cunning and deception. Who is to say he did not manipulate the link itself? You dare question my judgment? Hyejin's patterns blazed with fury. I question any judgment made under duress, Hyunwoo replied smoothly. You chose this human immediately after he saved your life. A moment of gratitude is not grounds for imperial marriage. I propose a period of separation, to ensure your feelings are genuine and not the result of trauma or manipulation. Murmurs spread through the witnesses. Some were nodding, their patterns showing agreement. Taemin felt sick. They had come so far, survived so much, and now politics threatened to destroy everything. Enough, the Empress said. Her voice cut through the noise like a blade. Lord Hyunwoo's objection is noted. However, the trials have been completed successfully. The bonding ceremony will proceed. An alarm blared through the chamber. Red emergency lights flooded the space. A guard rushed in, his patterns flashing in panic. Your Majesty, we are under attack! Explain, the Empress demanded. Ships have broken from the fleet. Lord Hyunwoo's loyalists, they are firing on the flagship and beginning orbital bombardment of the human colony. Everyone turned to look at Hyunwoo. The Lord's patterns shifted to victorious golds. A terrible accident, he said, not sounding sorry at all. My subordinates must have misunderstood their orders. I should go and sort this out immediately. You planned this, Hyejin breathed. You're staging a coup. Hyunwoo smiled, and it wasn't friendly. I am saving the Empire from weakness, Princess. This alliance with humans is a mistake. Better to eliminate the problem now before it spreads. The flagship shook as weapons fire struck its shields. Through the chamber's viewport, Taemin could see the colony below, already burning. Chaos erupted in the chamber. Half the Velisari guards moved to arrest Hyunwoo, while the other half blocked them. Weapons drawn, the witnesses scattered, patterns flashing in terrified yellows and whites. The Empress stood frozen, apparently unable to believe that one of her own lords would betray her so openly. Taemin didn't freeze. He grabbed Hyejin and pulled her behind a support column as energy weapons started firing. The bond they'd formed in the trial was still fresh, and he could feel her shock through their lingering connection. We need to get out of here, he said. My mother. We'll have her own guards. Right now we need to survive. More explosions rocked the ship. Through the viewport, Taemin could see Velisari warships firing on each other, the fleet tearing itself apart. Below on New Haven, plumes of fire rose from the colony districts. His home. His people. A familiar face pushed through the crowd. Bo-Ra, one of Hyejin's personal guards. Her patterns showed determined blues, and she had her weapon ready. Princess, we need to go now, Bo-Ra said urgently. Lord Hyunwoo has taken control of the East Docking Bay. If we don't move quickly, we'll be trapped. They ran through corridors that shook with each impact. Emergency lights cast everything in harsh reds. Other Velisari rushed past, some heading for battle stations, others just fleeing in panic. The coup had split the crew, some loyal to the Empress, some to Hyunwoo, and many just confused. How did this happen? Hyejin demanded as they ran. How did Hyunwoo get so many ships on his side? He's been planning this for months, Bo-Ra explained between breaths. Promised the old families that he'd restore traditional values, and your mother's experiments with alien integration. The trials just gave him an excuse to act. They reached an elevator shaft. The power was out, but Bo-Ra pried open the doors to reveal emergency ladders. They climbed down, level after level, while the ship continued shaking. Taemin's mind was racing. The colony was under attack, and he was stuck on an alien ship in the middle of a civil war. He needed to get down there, needed to help defend his people, but he was one soldier with no weapons and no way to reach the surface. Bo-Ra, he said as they climbed. How many ships stayed loyal to the Empress? Maybe 40% of the fleet, Bo-Ra replied. The rest either joined Hyunwoo or are staying neutral until they see who wins. And the colony's defenses? Minimal. Your people have some ground-based weapons, but nothing that can stop a sustained orbital bombardment. Hyunwoo's ships will level the colony within hours. They reached the docking level. Through the windows, Taemin could see the planet below, beautiful and burning. Somewhere down there, Major Subin was probably rallying whatever forces she could. Civilians would be fleeing to shelters, praying the walls would hold. His mother was down there in their small apartment in the mining district. I need to get to the surface, Taemin said. That's suicide, Bo-Ra protested. The bombardment is killing my people right now. I'm a soldier. My place is down there, not hiding up here. Hyejin grabbed his arm, her patterns cycling through distressed colors. You'll die. One human soldier cannot stop an orbital bombardment. Maybe not, Taemin agreed. But I can help organize the defense, get people to safety. Do something other than watch. Through their bond, he felt Hyejin's fear for him, but he also felt her understanding. She knew what duty meant, what it cost to be responsible for others. Then I'm coming with you, she said. Princess, you can't, Bo-Ra started. This war is happening because of me, Hyejin interrupted. Because I chose a human. Because I challenged our traditions. I will not hide while others pay the price for my choices. Bora looked between them, then sighed. Her pattern shifted to resigned blues. You're both insane. But if we're doing this, we need a plan. The only way down is through the docking bay, and Hyunwoo's forces control it. Then we take it back, Taemin said. They found a weapons locker that hadn't been secured. Bora armed herself with a proper rifle, while Taemin took something that looked like a human assault weapon and a Velisari pistol. Hyejin chose a smaller weapon, moving with the trained grace of someone who'd learned combat as part of her royal education. The docking bay was a war zone. Loyal guards were fighting Hyunwoo's soldiers across the hangar floor, using shuttles and cargo containers as cover. Energy weapons painted the air in bright streams of color. We need a shuttle, Taemin said, studying the layout. That one near the far wall. Looks like it's already powered up. To reach it, we have to cross 50 meters of open space under fire, Bora pointed out. Then we better move fast. What followed was the longest 50 meters of Taemin's life. They ran in short bursts using cover, laying down suppressing fire. Bora moved with military precision, her shots taking down enemies with clinical efficiency. Hyejin stayed close to Taemin, her patterns flashing with fear and determination. They were almost to the shuttle when one of Hyunwoo's soldiers got a clear shot. The energy bolt caught Taemin in the leg, burning through his armor and flesh. He went down hard, pain exploding up his body. Bora dragged him behind a container while Hyejin returned fire. Through the pain, Taemin saw her face. Calm, focused, deadly. This was a princess who'd been trained for war, and she was magnificent. Can you move? Bora asked, already applying emergency sealant to his wound. Do I have a choice? Taemin gritted out. They made it to the shuttle. Bora took the controls. Apparently Velisari royals didn't learn to fly their own ships, and launched before the hangar shields could close. Enemy fire chased them as they dropped toward the planet, but Bora's flying was skilled enough to avoid the worst of it. The descent was terrifying. They passed through battles in orbit, massive warships trading fire that could vaporize the shuttle in an instant. The planet grew larger, and Taemin could see the damage more clearly. Whole districts were burning. The spaceport was gone, just a crater. His heart sank. Where should I land? Bora asked. The military compound, Taemin said. If Major Subin is still alive, that's where she'll be. They came down hard, the shuttle's shields barely holding. The compound was damaged but still standing, ringed by hastily erected defenses. Human soldiers took positions, weapons aimed at the alien craft until Taemin stumbled out with his hands raised. Hold fire. It's Corporal Taemin. Major Subin appeared from a bunker, her face covered in soot and dried blood. She looked at Taemin, then at the two Velisari with him, and her expression was pure disbelief. You have got to be kidding me, she said. You're supposed to be passing trials and marrying a princess, not bringing the war to our doorstep. The war came on its own, Taemin replied, limping forward. Lord Hyunwoo staged a coup. The fleet is splitting apart, and he's trying to destroy the colony to prove humans are too weak to ally with. Subin's jaw tightened. Well, he's doing a damn good job. We've lost 30% of the colony. The shields won't hold more than a few more hours. After that, she didn't need to finish. What's our defensive strength? Taemin asked, falling back into military thinking despite the pain in his leg. 3,000 soldiers, maybe 5,000 armed civilians. We have ground-based plasma cannons, but not enough to make a difference against that many ships. We're evacuating civilians to the deep shelters, but if Hyunwoo decides to glass the planet, the shelters won't matter. Hyejin stepped forward. How many ships remain loyal to my mother? Subin looked at her warily. Our sensors show maybe 20 ships still fighting Hyunwoo's forces in orbit. Not enough to win. Then we need to change the fight, Hyejin said. Hyunwoo expects us to defend. Instead, we attack. Attack? Subin repeated. With what army? With your people and mine working together, Hyejin said. Your soldiers know tactics that my people don't. Guerrilla warfare, asymmetric combat, unpredictable strategies. My people have technology and individual combat ability. Combined, we might have a chance. Taemin felt a spark of hope through their bond. She was right. The Velisari were stronger individually, but they fought by the book. Humans were weaker but creative, adaptable. Together, they might be something Hyunwoo couldn't predict. It's a long shot, he said to Subin. Right now, long shots are all we have, the major replied. She looked at Hyejin with new respect. All right, princess. Tell me what you have in mind. As they gathered around a tactical display, planning their desperate counterattack, Taman felt the weight of everything settling on his shoulders. This wasn't about trials anymore, or politics, or proving humanity's worth. This was about survival, about protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. Through their bond, he felt Hyejin's determination matching his own. They'd faced trials together, merged their minds, and now they would fight together. Above them, the sky burned with falling ships and orbital fire. The war had come to New Haven, and somehow a human soldier and an alien princess had to find a way to stop it. The plan was insane, which meant it might actually work. Taemin stood in the command bunker watching the tactical display while medics finished treating his leg. The burn still hurt, but combat stimulants dulled the pain enough to let him function. Around him, human and Velisari officers worked side by side, an impossible sight just days ago. The flagship is still in high orbit, Bora explained, pointing at the display. Empress Da-un has barricaded herself in the command deck with her loyal guards. Hyunwoo's forces control most of the ship, but they can't breach the final defenses without killing her, which would turn even his allies against him. So it's a stalemate, Major Subin said. For now, Hyejin agreed. But Hyunwoo doesn't need to kill her. He just needs to destroy the colony and prove that alliance with humans leads to disaster. Once we're gone, he can force my mother to abdicate or spend years sieging the command deck. Either way, he wins. Unless we take the flagship first, Taemin said. Everyone turned to look at him. He felt their doubt through the bond with Hyejin, but also felt her sudden hope. She understood what he was thinking. You want to board the flagship, Subin said slowly, in the middle of a battle. With what forces? Combined teams, Taemin said, moving to the display. Small, fast, unpredictable. We use the civilian shuttles Hyunwoo isn't watching. Land in maintenance bays and service hatches. Hit their forces from inside while they're focused on the siege. It's suicide, one of the human officers protested. It's a chance, Hyejin countered. Hyunwoo expects us to defend the colony. He doesn't expect us to abandon the ground and strike at his center of power. Surprise is our only advantage. Bora studied the display. If we could reach my mother, free her forces from the siege, we could take back the ship. With the flagship back in Imperial hands, Hyunwoo's coalition would fracture. Many of his allies only support him because they think he's winning. How many people can we spare for this? Subin asked. 200 soldiers, Taemin said. Half human, half Velisari. We leave the rest to defend the colony shelters. If we fail, they buy time for evacuations. If we succeed, we end this. The major looked at him for a long moment, then at Hyejin. You really think this can work? I think it's the only thing that might work, Hyejin replied. Subin nodded slowly. Then we better move fast. Those shields won't hold forever. The next 2 hours were a blur of preparation. Taemin found himself working alongside Velisari soldiers, sharing tactical knowledge. They taught him about their shield technology and energy weapons. He taught them about improvised explosives and close-quarters combat. The cultural exchange was happening at gunpoint, but it was happening. His mother came to see him before the launch. She was older than he remembered, with new gray in her hair and worry lines around her eyes. She'd moved to the colony after Jinho died, wanting to be closer to her surviving son. You don't have to do this, she said quietly. You've already done more than anyone could ask. I have to, Taemin replied. If I don't, there won't be a colony left to save. She pulled him into a fierce hug. Your brother would be proud. I'm proud. I love you, Mom. Come back to me, she whispered. I can't lose another son. He promised he would try. The shuttles launched in the chaos of the orbital battle, small civilian craft that the warships ignored. They flew through debris fields and weapons fire, pilots pushing the engines beyond safety limits. Taemin rode in the lead shuttle with Hyejin, Bora, and 20 mixed soldiers. 2 minutes to the flagship, the pilot announced. Through the viewport, Taemin could see the massive vessel. It was beautiful in a terrible way, all elegant curves and deadly weapons. Scars marked its hull where Hyunwoo's ships had fired on it. They came in through a maintenance bay, cutting through the external doors with plasma torches. Alarms blared immediately, but the confused defenders didn't know who was attacking or from where. By the time they organized a response, Taemin's team was already inside, spreading through the corridors. The fighting was brutal. Close quarters, no room for grand tactics. Velisari fought Velisari while humans used every dirty trick they'd learned in years of colony defense. Taemin led his squad through engineering sections, disabling shield generators and power relays. Hyojin fought beside him, and through their bond he felt her determination and grief. She was fighting her own people, something she'd never imagined doing. Other teams reported in. They were making progress but taking casualties. The flagship was huge and Hyunwoo had hundreds of soldiers aboard. This was going to be close. They reached the command deck after 40 minutes of fighting. The siege forces had barricaded the main corridor, and breaking through would cost lives they couldn't afford. Taemin studied the defenses while energy bolts flew overhead. "We need a way around," he said. "There is no way around," Bo-Ra replied. "The command deck is designed to be defensible." "Designed by Velisari for Velisari tactics," Taemin said. He pulled up a schematic on his stolen datapad. "But humans think different. See this maintenance shaft? Too small for a Velisari, but I could fit. It comes out behind their position." "That's insane," Bo-Ra said. "Even if you reach them, it's 30 soldiers against 1. Then I don't fight them. I distract them while you hit from the front." Hyojin grabbed his arm, her patterns flashing in distressed colors. Through their bond, he felt her fear for him. "You'll die." "Maybe," Taemin admitted. "But if we don't do something, we all die. And this is what I'm good at, being stubborn and refusing to quit." She pulled him close, and for a moment they were just two people holding each other in the middle of chaos. "When this is over," she whispered, "we are going to have a very long conversation about your definition of reasonable risk." "It's a date," he replied, then kissed her. It was brief, desperate, and tasted like smoke and hope. The maintenance shaft was exactly as tight as the schematic showed. Taemin crawled through metal corridors barely wide enough for his shoulders, dragging weapons and explosives. He could hear the siege forces on the other side of the thin walls, shouting orders in their musical language. He reached the access panel and waited, counting down. When his chronometer hit 0, Bo-Ra's assault would begin. He had 30 seconds to act while they were distracted. The battle sounds changed. Hyojin's forces were attacking. Now, Taemin kicked open the access panel and threw every explosive he had into the siege force's rear position. He rolled out, firing as he went, not trying to hit anyone, just creating chaos. The Velisari spun in confusion, caught between two attacks. Bo-Ra's team broke through the barricade. Loyal guards from inside the command deck joined the fight. The siege forces, surrounded and leaderless, began surrendering. The command deck doors opened. Empress Dayun emerged, her crown still glowing despite the damage around her. She looked at the mixed human Velisari force, at her daughter covered in combat burns, at Taemin holding a smoking rifle. "Report," she commanded. "Most of the flagship is secured," Bo-Ra said. "Hyunwoo's forces are retreating to their ships." "And the colony?" "Still standing," Taemin replied, "barely, but standing." The Empress moved to the command station and began issuing orders in rapid Velisari. Ships loyal to her began coordinating, pressing Hyunwoo's fractured coalition. With the flagship back in Imperial hands, the tide was turning. "Ma'am?" one of the bridge officers called out. "Hyunwoo's command ship is breaking orbit. He's requesting single combat to settle this honorably." "It's a trap," Bo-Ra warned. "Of course it is," the Empress agreed. "But I am required by law to accept. Single combat between lords settles disputes without more bloodshed." "Let me go," Taemin said. Everyone stared at him. The Empress's patterns flickered in something that might have been respect or might have been amusement. "You have passed 3 trials, human. Do not think yourself invincible." "I don't," Taemin said. "But Hyunwoo doesn't think humans are threats. He underestimates us. That's my advantage." Hyojin started to protest, but through their bond he showed her his reasoning. Hyunwoo was a trained warrior, physically superior, better equipped, but he was also predictable following Velisari combat forms. Taemin had already beaten one Velisari champion by adapting and improvising. "I'll go with you," Hyojin said. "Single combat means alone," the Empress stated. "Then I'll watch," Hyojin said firmly. "And if he dies, Hyunwoo will face me next." They met on a damaged section of the ship's hull open to space. Both wore environmental suits, and the battle raged in the distance, silent in the vacuum. Hyunwoo stood waiting, his suit marked with ceremonial designs of his house. "The human child comes to die," Hyunwoo said over the suit radio. "How fitting. Your kind has always been weak, pretending its strength." Taemin didn't respond. He was watching, learning. Hyunwoo moved with the same confident grace all Velisari showed. Perfect form, perfect balance, perfect predictability. The fight began. Hyunwoo attacked with a plasma blade, strikes that would have killed Taemin instantly, but Taemin didn't try to match his strength or speed. He moved wrong, chaotic, unpredictable. He used the damaged hull, kicked up debris, fought dirty. Hyunwoo's patterns showed frustrated anger. He'd trained for honorable combat, not this street-fighting chaos. Taemin got inside his guard and damaged his suit's power core. Hyunwoo's blade flickered and died.